Let's talk quickly how radios work. These radios work on UHF, VHF, which is line of sight. One of the characteristics about these radios is the distance that I can talk with these two radios is really limited by line of sight. If I'm talking radio to radio, that's called simplex operation, so this radio is talking to this radio. And as long as I have line of sight where these radios can communicate, we can have effective communication. One of my favorite examples of these types of radios is talking to the space station. Now, I've talked to the space station using this exact type of radio, same UHF, VHF radio, same power setting. And remember, the International Space Station is 250 miles straight up. And so you might think, oh, this is a powerful radio because I can talk to the space station. But if you understand radios, you just say, well, that's only because he's using UHF, VHF, and I know UHF, VHF is line of sight. And what's between me and the space station? Nothing. So straight up line of sight, no problem. But does that same distance translate down on Earth? I should be able to talk to my buddy 250 miles away. And if you understand UHF, VHF, you know that now suddenly between me and my buddy, it's not straight line of sight, but I have terrain features, hills, mountains, buildings, trees that are interfering with that line of sight. So effectively, I might have communication that might be 1 to 5 miles, or if we're on hilltops, perhaps 35 or more. Remember, line of sight with UHF, VHF. What if I want to have longer communication with these same radios? If we think about line of sight, UHF, VHF, we now think about something called a repeater. So a repeater is nothing more than a third radio put in this sequence. So I've got a repeater now up on a mountaintop or top of a tall building. And again, remember, line of sight with UHF, VHF, suddenly now I can have extended communication where I might not be able to talk to my buddy here because of terrain features, but with a mountain and a repeater, I can suddenly talk with them because my radio is going up to the repeater and then down to my buddy on the other side of the mountain. Now, how do repeaters work? At first, it seems a little confusing, but the radio kind of takes care of that for you. If we're talking simplex, we're talking on the same frequency. That works with the repeater, except the repeater is listening on one frequency, but transmitting on another frequency. That transmit frequency is the listening frequency that these two radios are set to. And it's no more complicated than that. When I key up this radio to talk to my buddy after the repeater, when I push the button, the radio automatically shifts up or shifts down, depending upon the repeater. And when I key up the mic, my transmit frequency is changed to the receive frequency for the repeater. When I let go of the mic, I now am listening, so when my buddy keys up, he's doing the same thing, shifting up or down, talking to the repeater, and the repeater then rebroadcasts on the same listening frequency that we are tuned to. So it's not complicated to use a repeater. You have three things. The frequency that you want to listen to, there is a shift either up or down, and then there's a PL tone. And once you have those set, these two radios now can utilize the extended footprint of a repeater. Now, where would this come in handy? If my buddy and I are just doing some exploring where we've got line of sight, simplex is perfect. But what if we're out doing some activities where he might be on the other side of a ravine, or he might be down deep in a ravine, maybe fly fishing, and I'm up at base camp, and we don't have line of sight? That's when we want to utilize a repeater. And a radio like this, one of the interesting features for this particular radio, the Terminator, is it has crossband repeat. Now that we've had this conversation, you can understand the utility of having a radio that has built-in crossband repeat, because I can use one of these radios as a repeater, and now we have extended communications because of that repeater. And now if my buddy is down in the ravine and I'm up at base camp, we can still have effective communication. Again, remember, just limited to line of sight with UHF and VHF.